So this is the fourth in the series on the reverse addict, and I hope you've had a chance to study the first three, because in those videos this whole thing is set out in a logical order. First of all, we set the context. In video 2 we talked about the difference between the addict and the reverse addict and why I see it that way and how I approach it. And in the third one we looked at the biblical context really, and the biblical foundation, as it were, for this view, which is definitely Luke 15 and the prodigal son. Now it's getting a bit more where we're getting to the stage where you're going to start applying some of this stuff, where you're saying, well, you know, what do I do with it? How do I use what you're saying to help myself? And so what we're going to talk about today is the notion, or the phenomenon really, of attraction. Now, before I start this, I want to say that of course we're talking generally here. We're talking about classic generalizations in this field, because you're not here with me. I can't speak to you personally about your situation. Everybody is to some extent individual, but of course far more connects us than separates us. That's why the parables in Luke 15 and so on do apply, because Jesus could talk to us about personality types and attitudes and so on, and things that work and things that don't, and we can all apply them. So I hope you can apply this, but of course take into account that your situation will have some unique ideas to it. So having said that, what is attraction? You know, we very rarely maybe question this or think about it, but today I want to unpack it a little bit and say, you know, it's a tremendous mystery. If you note in the Bible, in fact, Paul talks about the nature of marriage as one of the deepest mysteries. And some people are shocked to hear that, you know. And of course he says we're talking about Christ and the church. And that's to some extent what he means. But the notion, the phenomenon of attraction is also a deep mystery. So how is that and why is it? Well, we're going to unpack it a little bit today, okay? Let's start by saying that when we say we're attracted to somebody, when we find somebody attractive, or to be fair, the opposite, when people rub us up the wrong way, we say, I just can't stand them, I don't know what it is about them. It's the same thing. Something's happening that is turning us towards or turning us away from somebody. And that thing actually is very deep. It's at the level of unconscious where we can never see it. So what's going on, and how do we understand it? Well, I want to use the notion of icebergs. Now, this is not because people are cold or anything to do with freezing things. It's just the idea. I think it's a great metaphor, because 7/8 of an iceberg is underwater. So the bit that we see, if you like, the bit that's above the water that we can actually make sense of the shape and the type, that's about 1/8 of what's actually going on. Now that means that even when two icebergs are quite a way apart, under the water they can be meeting. Under the water, where they can't see what's going on, there can be a sense of togetherness. Now, what happens, the way to use this metaphor is to say, well, if those two icebergs connect under the water, which cannot be seen, then there's either a good fit, a sense of like a jigsaw puzzle, a decent psychological or emotional fit, or of course there can be a very jarring sense where the two shapes just don't fit together. And that essentially is the nature of attraction. If there's a good fit, then what will happen is you will get a sense of, I just want to spend more time with this person. I just like being with them. It just makes me feel good. Something's going on, right? And those things well up, you can feel them, but really they're going on at the nature of the unconscious. So what can happen then is we can understand our unconscious attraction that can't be explained in a conscious way. You can't really explain why you're attracted to somebody. It's just too difficult, but you know it's there. And so when we start to think about these icebergs, what we would say is this: your unconscious can see the other's unconscious. They witness them, connect with them, engage with them in a way that is very difficult to explain. But whilst their unconscious can see your unconscious and your unconscious can see their unconscious, you can never see your own unconscious. And they can't see theirs, which is why it remains to some extent a mystery. So if we can just take that metaphor and run with it and just sort of say, yes, I get that. It's not something that I'm choosing consciously. I'm not saying, let me think. You know, they've got a good job, they've got a nice car. You know, we're not thinking like that at all. Maybe that comes in later, and maybe it comes in if we're thinking politically or in a business-like sense, but definitely not when we're talking about love and the natural essence of love, which is completely out of our control. So how does this help you? Well, what it suggests to you is that even when we're talking, and don't forget, this is not just about someone you might marry or someone you're really attracted to. This is someone in the office who, or even your friends, this can be a social thing, even how you engage with your family is affected by this. It's all part of the way that our unconscious engages with the unconscious of the other. So what I want you to take from this is the idea that you're engaging with people, and your sense of, as a reverse addict, how I need to help people, or how I must really try and be good to them, or have good things happen to them or for them or through them, that is being driven by your unconscious. And if you look at the other videos, you'll see the context in which that is constructed, how in our family life and how we learned how to be and how we were trained how to be produces that iceberg shape under the water. And then what that does is then connect with others. Now, from this perspective, of course, you can see just how well reverse addicts connect with addicts. Because what happens is, where you've got a gap, they've got something there, so there's a great fit. In other words, the reverse addict typically doesn't want to be seen. They want to be able to help, but they don't want the spotlight. They want to have others have the spotlight. Now, an addict, of course, loves the spotlight, generally speaking, the narcissistic thing. And so the fact that they're with somebody who puts them first, well, they love it. And it's a great attraction to them. And likewise, the other way around, the fact that the addict puts themselves first, it fits the reverse addict perfectly, because they don't want that. And so this fit is often a very strongly felt attraction, particularly at the beginning. But of course, I'm saying it also affects the way that work colleagues relate to you, how you relate to them. You'll find, if you're very strongly afflicted by the reverse addict personality, you'll find that people who are very needy, people who need help and want attention to be on them all the time, absolutely are drawn to you, and you're drawn to them. You will be finding it very difficult, for instance, to say no to them. There'll be an almost unwritten law that you have to put yourself last, that you have to help them, that you have to do what they want, and so on. Those of you who are afflicted, goodness me, you'll be identifying like mad with this. I don't need to explain it too much to you. You'll have felt it so many times in your life. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm trying to hang a little bit of theory on it, psychoeducation, if you like, so that you get some sense of why that is. So again, how do we then use it? Even when we understand it, even when we get it, it's still there, and we need to do something about it. Now, the first thing I would say is that this is no quick fix. Don't expect to just hear a video like this and to be able to go out tomorrow and relate to people completely differently, to do a better job of how you relate to them and how you make decisions around them. Think rather in terms of two things, and these are growth principles you'll hear me talk about again and again. The first thing is to be in harmony with yourself. Don't fall out with yourself when you get it wrong. Try not to have a go at yourself. Now, there's my alarm, which means I have to wrap this up. We may talk a little bit more about this in the next one. I know there's going to be a next one. But today we talked about the nature of attraction and just a little bit of information there as to say this is how it happens. And so we'll talk some more maybe in the next one about how we go on and really get down to practical things about how we deal with it. So bye for now. See you on the next one.